The first episode of season 37 of The Simpsons is now on Disney Plus in the UK, and of course I rushed to watch it, and I can say that it's fine. It's okay. I didn't love it, but I don't have any problems with it either. This is Thrifty Ways to Thieve Your Mother, and as always there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode chronologically, explain what happens, and share some thoughts. And this one starts off with the Simpsons going to the movies, and then they decide to wait until it just becomes free on television in a couple of days instead. And then Marge is unhappy with the language that's on television. The language wasn't that bad, so she goes and finds some DVDs instead, because as she said, the language on DVDs is never that bad, which is an interesting take. And they watch a show called Keegan's Pond, which is apparently based on Dawson's Creek. I've never seen Dawson's Creek. It didn't mean anything to me. I didn't really care for the TV show clip or the DVD clip, but it wasn't too bad. And then we have the main narrative established. We're having a little bit of a trip down memory lane to the 90s, and Marge and Lisa are in the attic looking through some of Marge's things, and they find some clothing. And Lisa puts on this cute sunflower dress, and she realises it actually looks quite good. 90s fashion is back in style. The vintage look is quite popular now, and she realises maybe she could wear this to school. And I have to say, I don't think they did, in my opinion, I don't think they did a great job of representing 90s clothing. At least 90s children's clothing. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe it was different in the States, but generally when I see nostalgic posts on Instagram and whatever, even when they're based in the States, I can still relate to them. So apart from the jelly shoes, which feature at one point, I just don't think the clothing was very 90s. I think they could have made more of an effort to make it look more 90s. Again, that's based on my opinion, my experience of clothing in the 90s. It could be different in different places, but I guess the point there is that for me, other than the jelly shoes, it didn't really feel nostalgic. And if you showed me a picture of, for example, Lisa in this little sunflower dress and gave me no context, I never would have said, hey, she's wearing something from the 90s. So I don't think that was very well done, but that is based on my experience. Lisa then decides to give this dress a go, and she wears it to school, and it goes really well. And suddenly everybody loves her, because apparently the most important thing is what you wear. And Lisa's very excited about this. She tells Marge. Marge is really excited, and she dumps out this box of clothing. And Lisa starts to wear them, and we get this really fun, very well-edited, well-animated clip of Lisa walking through the school and all of these different clothing. And again, most of them didn't feel 90s. I enjoyed it because I like to see Lisa in the different clothing to see what she looks like, and it was fun to see the different styles. But again, if I'd seen these in isolation with no context, I don't think I would have said it looked very 90s, but that's my opinion and my experience. Growing up in the 90s, I was born in 1992 for reference, so for me, I lived in 90s clothing for pretty much my entire, well, at least until I was 8, and I probably didn't very quickly leave 90s fashion behind as soon as 2000 hit, so I grew up loving 90s clothing, and I think they could have done a better job with that, but I won't go on and on about that. Lisa then makes some new friends. They decide to go thrifting with her, and I think there's an interesting point here. Lisa says, and I quote, "So thrift stores aren't for poor people anymore." And I think this is really significant because charity shops, at least in the UK, seem to price things ridiculously expensive. Now, there is an argument that the money goes to charity, so it can be more expensive. But there's also the argument that charity shops, at least in the UK, are often somewhere people can go where they can maybe find something that's quite nice, but for a fraction of the cost. Whereas that just seems like not the case. I don't mind when actual vintage clothing stores have expensive pricing, or reasonable pricing. But I have to say, Lisa's surprise was a very valid point. Yes, the money goes to charity, but also people rely on thrift stores and charity stores to find things that they maybe can't afford at full price. Whereas a lot of these stores seem to price things more expensive than the prices you can get them brand new in store. So Lisa had a very important point to make there. And she's spending time with her new friend. She's supposed to meet with Marge, but she ditches her. Marge is so annoyed that she takes back all of her clothing, and Lisa has to wear the orange dress again. And then the second part of the narrative kicks in, and she and her new friends are going to steal all of the vintage clothing, because, as they reasoned, all of the mothers who have boy mothers, they're going after boy mothers, will have all of these vintage clothing in boxes, but they don't have a daughter they can pass the clothing down to. So it's just going to sit there gathering dust. However, I also think it's a bit of a leap, because I feel like not many people from my generation, at least, to my knowledge, would have kept their clothing. I think if the alternative is you're going to just throw it in the bin, if it can be saved, absolutely keep your clothing. But I don't think many people actually do that. You grow out of it, you don't just leave it lying around, you pass it on, you give it to a family member who's maybe younger or not as tall as you, or whatever the case may be. So their belief that all of these women in Springfield have just got boxes and boxes of vintage clothing, it's a bit of a stretch, but nevertheless, that's what they believed for the narrative to work, and they go around these houses of these women who have boys but no girls, and they are with Ralph briefly and then steal from Mrs. Wiggum, and it's just, it's dark. It gets quite dark and a little unbelievable. You do, in my opinion, need to suspend disbelief a little bit. And then it gets even more bizarre. And this is the point where I thought, okay, this is a bit ridiculous now. Because Marge, who was at a dance with Bart, that's not the unbelievable part. As Lisa is about to get caught by the police for stealing, Marge pops up in the window and she rows away in a rowboat to save Lisa from being caught by the police. The reason she found her is because she tracked her on a tracking device. And I have to say, I like that, because I like it when The Simpsons brings itself into the 21st century. There are certain episodes or certain scenes, such as that scene, that wouldn't have played out the same way in the 80s and 90s and early noughties, because we didn't have phones with tracking devices. So that wouldn't have worked the same way, and I like that. But rowing away with Lisa, I feel like that was a little bit ridiculous. So I didn't like that decision, but I did like the ending. The ending sees Marge slowly driving along beside Lisa and her new friends, who are not annoyed at her. I feel like because Lisa was being made to return all of the clothing, I feel like her friends easily could have just done a runner and ditched her the way Lisa ditched Marge. But they were there, and Marge was forcing them to return all of the clothing that they stole, which is the right thing to do, and it was not a bad way to end it. So I love the celebration of 90s clothing. I don't think they did a good job of representing the clothing. That is based on my memories and my nostalgia, of course, apart from the jelly shoes. The narrative works well enough. Definitely need to suspend disbelief on a few occasions, but ultimately, I guess it's not too bad. And there are obviously some important lessons there about not stealing. So all things considered, not the strongest episode. Definitely not the strongest start to the season either. I feel like the season openers need to be much stronger than this, because a lot of people are losing faith in The Simpsons. I still really love the show. I know a lot of people are dropping off, and fewer people, based on people I've talked with, are not watching it anymore. So I feel like they needed something stronger to really hook the viewer in at the beginning of the season. But as a fan of The Simpsons, as somebody who's still enjoying it, and as somebody who still intends to watch the whole season, I didn't mind it. So I guess it balances out as being an okay episode. Thrifty ways to thieve your mother, all things considered, I guess is not too bad.